Hey guys, welcome to another project, and this one is called Canova. Now it's quite simple in terms of, if you look at the shape, quite standard shape, but we have added a lot of interest and a lot of detail, just like that's pins, and I need to stitch that yet. And I've also shown you in a free video on my YouTube channel how to sew this leather handles onto the fabric. We also learn how to finish this kind of finish with a zipper, which is called a boat panel. And apart from it, we've used a cut and sew zipper inside, and these are all just bias binding and the tape decoration. This one has got a round base. If you find it difficult to attach a round base, you could make this bag a little bit shorter and use that corner finish that I have shown you in tote bag. You can extend the length by 2 inches and go and cut out your corners, and that will work as well. Let's go ahead and get started with this project.
Before we start off this project, let me explain all the patterns and whatever we need to complete this bag. Okay, so first things first, I have got a leather handle which is brown in color, and then it's got the kind of stitch marks here which we could either hand sew or machine sew. I have got a 22-inch brown colored open end zipper. For this project you could use open end or closed end, it really doesn't matter. I've also got 8-inch zipper which goes inside the lining. I'm going to use zipper inside the bag for both the back and the front, but if you did not want 2 zippers inside the bag, then you could just have one. So I've already used one of them because one part of my lining is already ready, so it's in here, so the other one is here. And I've also got 6 meters of bias binding, some of which I have already used in this round panels. This is a 1/4 inch brown colored webbing tape, which is 100% cotton, which came along with a pair of trousers that I used, from which I have cut out these brown pieces. So I'm just using that. If you don't have this, then just go ahead and use a 1/4 inch light color, light brown bias binding. Okay, so here is a little piece of fabric which is not in your pattern, but we need this for inner pocket lining. Now it could be any color, it doesn't matter. I've just got a piece of white fabric left over, I'm using it. I'll explain this to you in a minute. So let's just go through the pattern. Okay, basically there are 7 pieces in your bag. So the big part like this is the main part of the bag. When I finish this bag, I will finalize the pattern and put all the details on there, and you can actually buy this pattern on eBay, and I'll put some links under the video below. Now we need 2 pieces of these canvas fabric which I have cut out. Now this one you need to cut it on fold. I'll put up another video explaining the pattern later on once I finalize that. And you also need lining. Now this lining is already ready with the zipper. Now I have made this pattern in such a way that you can actually go and sew the zipper so neatly like a professional. The patterns are made for novices, so you won't have any trouble at all. Follow my video, follow my instructions, and you will get the same finish that I have got in here. Now this pocket is already ready, but I'm going to show you, because the same panel, we have it on the other side of the bag, so I will show you step by step how to do it. These pieces here are for the lining with the zipper, so I'm going to put them aside, all 3 of them. So I'm going to explain the step by step later when we come to the lining. This is the base of the bag. This is the facing for the bag, also the zipper panel as well. So this is a little bit different than all the bags that we've done before, and these are just the decorations. These are like half moon panels. It's like a crescent shaped, and I have got one pattern here. I'm going to explain each one of them little by little as we go along, as we come to that part. Okay, now let's talk about these 2 panels. This is the facing and this is the base of the bag. So for the base of the bag, I have got, this is the main fabric, which is slightly kind of brownish color, light brown. And I have got, for the lining, instead of taking black, I have taken a really thick 14-ounce canvas. So both of them are identically the same. Now that's the pattern, I'll keep it aside. Now this is a canvas fabric which is called collar canvas. basically this is used in collars and it's quite stiff. It's got the glue on one side and fabric, cotton fabric on the other side. Now exactly same as our pattern, but what I have done is I have marked, if you can see, not sure if the camera picks it up or not, I have marked out the seam allowance. I'll show this to you in close-up in a minute. Now I have marked out the seam allowance and I'm going to cut the seam allowance. Exactly the same way. This is the facing for the bag. I have got 2 pieces of canvas, which is the main fabric, and then this is the collar canvas. We also need 2 pieces of these, okay? So basically I have marked out the seam allowance, which is 1/2 inch only on one side, not in this side, only on this side. So we're going to trim the seam allowances of these 2 canvases and this canvas. You will see why we need this later on as we come to finishing the base of the bag and the top of the bag. Okay, this is the facing of the bag. Now if you can see, there it is, the seam allowance. So basically I'm just going to trim this seam allowance, and this is of no use, so just throw this away. So I've trimmed the seam allowance on both the canvases. This is the facing of the bag. We are going to place on either side, the glue side is the bottom of this canvas, and position it so one side you have the seam allowance and the other side is quite close to the edge. And the same way we're going to do this one as well. So basically place this so the seam allowance is on one side and the top is on the other side. So we just go and press this. Before we go ahead and press this, we are going to go and cut the seam allowance of this in the same shape that I have marked. Okay, once you go and cut this, we're going to do exactly the same on the base as well. Okay, I'm just ironing the canvas onto the facing of the bag. So basically that's what we've done. And the same way we have done the base of the bag. So this is the center is the canvas and all the seam allowance is cut off. Okay, this is the main part of the bag. I'll keep my pattern piece aside and let me open the 2 panels. Now this is the bag opening and these are the side seams of the bag. Okay, before we go ahead, we need to make some markings. Basically, kind of fold this into half and make a notch mark. Same way, fold this side and make a notch mark. So now what we need to do, we need to take each panel and then try and go from the notch to notch. Place your 1/4 inch of a bias tape or your cotton tape and we go and sew on either side. Okay, I have changed my foot to this foot. Basically, this is the edge that kind of gives me the guide to sew an edge stitch really neatly. I have made an iron mark at the notch to the notch on the fabric, so I can center this tape as I go along and sew an edge stitch on both the sides. Now when I'm sewing, I'm not keeping my eye on the needle, I'm keeping my eye at this edge to the edge of the tape. So I'm not really kind of going wonky, it's absolutely perfectly straight. At the edge, I just turn around and then sew another edge stitch on the other side. Okay, we have sewn this brown tape. We're going to take 2 bias tapes, which is 1 inch wide, place them on either side, like so, and leave about the same width of your tape on either side. And that is very important to kind of get this neat look we're after. Okay, if you want to mark it or pin it, tack it, whatever you want to do, go and do it. I just keep it and sew just as it is like this because I can sew really straight. If you can't, if you're not confident, then just go and mark it, tack it, and then go and sew on either side exactly the same way we did this center binding. Okay, we've attached all the bindings, all 3 of them. Now we need to go on to the next step. Now we have these half moon shapes. We are going to put one at the bottom, and the smaller panels of these are going to go at the top. Now the patterns for these are exact, because this is folded into half. Basically both of them are of the same size, but there is a mark here, there's a little notch mark that I have given you. When you come to the smaller one, you have to cut 2 of these for the bottom, and then fold this pattern and then cut 2 of these for the top. So I'm going to keep the pattern aside, and I've already binded the edge of this. This is an outer curve, so let me go ahead and show you how to do on this panel. So once we finish that, you go and do the same process on all of these. So I'm just going to very easily take a little bit of bias binding and cut that. You don't need any extra, but just have about ½ an inch or so extra, so as when you take like this, it's fine. Now we are going to go and open your bias binding like so. Now edge the edge of the bias binding to edge of your fabric, and not on the fold here, but slightly away from the fold towards the edge, go and sew a seam all around. Now you don't need to pull it, just go easy, just keep reshaping the fabric like this, and we just go and sew all the way round. Okay, I've changed my foot back to the normal foot, so I'm going to place my fabric like so and go and sew little away from the fold. You can keep your stitch length to quite long, because this is only a stay stitch, this is not a permanent stitch. So let me just hold my fabric like that and then go. Okay, so that's how it looks. Now when we go and fold it into half to cover it, now you can see that this bends a little bit. The curve bends a little bit, but that's fine because we're going to iron it and make it flat. So now what I'm going to do is basically fold it in like that and fold all the way, and then start from this end. When I start sewing from this end, I'm going to change my foot back to this one. So the edge of this will be the edge of the beginning of this binding here, so my stitching will be very neat. Okay, when we fold it, because our folding is sitting right to the edge of the seam allowance that we need to give, there is no extra fabric here, so that's going to kind of edge and curve very neatly. Okay, now that we've finished the binding, this you can see that they're lifting a little bit from the flat surface. All you have to do is just go and iron it, and they will just go flat like a pancake. There won't be any trouble at all, because the bias binding is going to kind of stretch as per the fabric curve and then sit flat. Now take the panel, the bottom one, the long one, just fold it into half and make a notch mark. Same way we're going to fold this panel into half and make a notch at the top and notch at the bottom or the top, whichever way you want to call it. So, and match the notch of this to the notch of the main panel, and the same way I'm going to notch this and match the notch and place it, and just go and put an edge stitch. This is only a stay stitch, this is not a permanent stitch. We only need it at the edge here, and we need it at the edge here. Don't sew this, you will see why later on, because that's the last thing we're going to do. You can see that I have done a little join here because the fabric was not enough. This was cut off from a trouser fabric. This is a seamless zigzag join, so if you want to make joins like these for flat surfaces, then go and watch my video. I have put a link below. This is called seamless zigzag join, also making flat denim panels. It works with any fabric. Okay, so basically we're going to place it there, go and sew a straight stitch on either side. Okay, I have attached these two panels on both sides of the bag. Now we need to go and attach these two panels. Hopefully you have done it right, and mine's almost matching. There's a little, probably about a couple of millimeters away from each other, but don't worry. If it's not like 1/4 of an inch, don't worry about it. I have got another trick up the sleeve because this is made for novices, as I said. So I'm going to place this like so and go and sew a 1/2 inch stitch from here to here. And once we've done that, we're going to turn the seams open and then put a bias binding on the top. I have sewn from here to here, starting and finishing with a back stitch. Now we just go and open the seams flat. Okay, now you can see there's a little bit, because it's about probably 2 millimeters away from these, they're not joining properly. This is what happens when you do it on 2 panels, because sometimes, you know, you kind of go a little bit away when you sew. But we're going to cover this up, hopefully, and it's not going to be seen at all. So let me just put this back in like that, and we are going to go and put another bias binding in the center and hide, because if it's well away from each other, between 1 inch of this bias binding, that's not going to be so visible. But if it's not, then you can see that it's not matching properly. Okay, so I'm going to place this bias binding like here, and then go and sew on either side. Okay, we're finished sewing on either side. Now we're going to go and match this seam and sew a stitch, open the seams, and go from here and go and attach the binding. It's going to be a little bit difficult, but you can actually do it. You just have to make sure that you kind of give yourself a lot of time, open it, and go and sew the binding on the seam as well. Okay, we need to go on to the next step. Before we do that, I just want to show you that the bottom flap, the brown colored one, that I have sewn in double stitching on the end using this foot. So basically align the edge of the foot to the edge of the binding and go and sew a top stitch. And I have done both the bottom ones, and I have left the top ones. This we need to leave until the end. We can't sew this yet because we need to attach the handle, the zip, the lining, everything else. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this version of Canova. Leave a comment and let me know what you think. I shall see you next time.